It's probably coming as no surprise to anyone watching this video that social care in the UK is in a pretty dire state. The government recently announced a plan that was incredibly inadequate and didn't get to the fundamental problems within social care, which isn't just about a lack of funding. It's also about a lack of long-term preparation, about a lack of understanding on how technology is going to change, how we're going to best utilise that, and of course a huge gap in any kind of assessment of the problems that are currently occurring in terms of privatisation, and how really social care should be a fundamental sort of social right in this country, like other kinds of healthcare, like education, and things like that. So it's really not been good. The government obviously were going to fund that and I'll go into fund that with a national insurance hike. Rather than making the ultra wealthy pay a little bit more, they're going to make working class people pay a bit more, which seems very unfair to me. But Andy Burnham is kind of speaking up about this. Now, the Labour Party in general have been all right on this. They've been all right. But for the most part, they haven't really offered an alternative solution. Now, I'm not the kind of person usually who idolises a politician. I certainly don't view them in a similar sense to celebrities. I don't just cling to red team, blue team or yellow team or whatever. But Andy Burnham is a politician that just consistently gets things pretty spot on. He's usually pretty on the money about stuff, and this is an issue where he's fantastic. So he tweeted, for those of you who don't know who Andy Burnham is, you know who he is, Mayor of Greater Manchester. An £86,000 cap will never be the fairest way of funding social care, however you do it. So he's basically talking about a suggestion to means test the kind of public aid that you get, I believe, in terms of social care when you're older, because the Tories have proposed this legislation. He then goes on to say, social care on NHS terms, funded by wealth taxes and a 10% levy on estates, is the way to go. Of course, it really does not seem like the Conservatives are going to be doing that in government anytime soon, and Labour doesn't really seem to want to propose their own legislation. So what Andy Burnham's talking about here is a sort of short-term, an immediate move toward a much more sort of generalised, publicly oriented social care system, and in the long run, basically turning it entirely into a sort of social right. Right, you have a right to high quality social care free at the point of service, paid for through taxation, just like you have a right to high quality healthcare free at the point of service, paid for through taxation on the NHS. Same thing goes for education. Same thing should go for plenty of other things. Let's be honest, we're in an incredibly wealthy society. The vast majority of our people work very hard. They play by the rules. We should, things like water and electricity and housing and broadband, yes, broadband should really be social rights at this point. And of course, having an income enough so that you don't have to live in poverty should be as well. I think a negative income tax is a good policy there. But anyway, I digress. The point is, Andy Burnham's got an actual policy. He's got an actual policy. And when he was in the shadow cabinet as an MP, I think it was 2011 or 2012, because the Tories were pushing their health and social care bill at the time, which was a dreadful bill, opened up a lot more room for privatisation, which is what this new bill does, even more so. Andy Burnham was proposing legislation to essentially revamp social care, renew it, transform it and fund it properly for the 21st century. Because in terms of demographic changes, we are really, really going to need to transform the way that we conduct our society generally, right? Because we have an ageing population. We have fewer and fewer high quality, like well-paid jobs for people. Pensions are constantly being eroded or gutted by the government, and companies are trying to get away with that wherever they can. You have obviously unions are weaker than they used to be prior to the 1980s, and so that's meant that like pensions have suffered. It's even worse in the United States, where they basically, most people have a 401k, which is just a way worse sort of version of a pension. And our social care system is not properly funded. We're not investing in the technologies that we need to replace human workers in social care, because of course that ageing population means that the working population is going to be a lot smaller than we need it to be to look after all of these older people. It's going to be a lot more expensive, and we're going to be finding that a lot of the individuals, a lot of ordinary people who are already being taxed too much with like this hike in national insurance contributions are going to have to pay even more. Now, why are they going to have to pay even more? They're going to have to pay more because there is going to be fewer and fewer people actually making money other than these enormous corporations and this tiny number of already very, very wealthy people, because jobs are going to become more and more scarce. So we need a long-term plan. I'm not saying this is going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. This could take 70, 80 years. Personally, I think it'll probably be closer to sort of 20 or 30 years at the rate that technologies are improving. But Andy Burnham's got a plan, and I really hope Labour adopt it. And if you want, you can literally read the full legislation. We'll link it in the description below, because it's great. I mean, it's legislation. It's not exactly fun to read, but imagining the effect that would have on the lives of so many older people, it's just it's a wonderful thought. So let's actually do it. Let's do something good. I'm interested to see what your thoughts are on this. So leave them in the comments below if you want, and I'll give them a read. Thank you all very much for watching as usual, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.